Good evening, Simon.
Good evening or good night.
As we've been sitting here in preparation for having a talk, it's got darker and darker and darker behind you, which I think is a great entree into our talk, which is about putting out the lights, the tail end of your life, the closing the door, the moving on, whatever other word you'd like to use.
Um, yes. So basically, we actually met. I met a guy the other day randomly who lives in Northern Territory and works a lot with the local Indigenous community up there. And he was talking about like, what's your kind of like eternity plan? And I was like, what's an eternity plan? He went, what do you want your legacy to be? It's like, how your energy is spread throughout the world after you're gone. We had a whole, and we just met him just by the ocean talking, and he ends up talking about how he works with the local indigenous population and he's lived in Arnhem Land for a long time. It was really interesting. So, so we got involved in the space around sort of end of life through the Australian Centre for Social Innovation, so TAXI, and something that's now called the Good Death Impact Network. But that story goes way back to when my partner and I, Leonie, started the Aging Revolution, and that's in 2015, so 10 years this year. And so I was running seniors card for New South Wales government. Actually, Kate, I completely blame you for all this because I was
Me.
working in the yeah, I was working in the corporate environment, met Kate, she got me into yoga, and then I thought I need to do something more with my life. And then yakety schmackety, here I am. And that was in 2007.
And might I
And
just
then
say that
yeah,
inevitably, aging leads to,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's one of the things I did a talk at Woodford actually, and I got up there talking about the aging revolution, which is kind of where this all comes from. And we were looking at aging and ageism and the process and systems around growing older. And someone heckled me and said, I'm too young to be aging. And I had to shout back to them, just like, think about what you just said for a second. Because if you're not aging, the alternative is you're dead. so, so we've always been interested in that whole space. And the fact that as a society, we're allergic to talking about growing older, let alone talking about dying,
Mm.
especially in the kind of like waspy Western Anglo-Saxon Protestant vibes. And so it's something that's always interested us. And so that's how we got into designing a card game that I'll be talking more about today called Carked It. Here we go.
And
And
when I look at that, it's just immediately brings in a lightness around the concept of death. Like who puts one of those funny party hats on a skull?
yeah, exactly. And I think the whole idea was it's a topic people struggle with and have difficulty even talking about. So my dad died of motor neuron disease, and he didn't want to talk about it, even though it was inevitable it was going to happen. And it's really frustrating for people around them, around about what do you want to happen? What do you want to do whilst you're living? What do you want to eat? What music do you want us to do? How do you want to die? What's the process of dying like? If you're in palliative care, what options do you want? And
Mm.
then once you're dead, what do you want to happen afterwards? How do you want to be remembered? Or do you want to party or do you want nothing? And so we just ignore it until it's too late, which causes lots of stress around people. And people can have like three funerals that different people have paid for, or even the worst one, funeral insurance, which is basically rorting the system. And don't ever do that because you end up spending $80,000 on a funeral. And I think also because of the legislation in Australia. So for those not in Australia who go, what the hell is carked it? It's Australian slang for like dying. So if I put it into context, it'd be like he was in North Queensland, which is where I live, went for a swim, got grabbed by a crocodile and carked it, died. So we wanted to make it humorous because we are like, how do you start talking about something? And there's a really good ad campaign in Australia called Dumb Ways to Die. It was all about safety around trains, but it got people laughing and talking about it like a real dry subject.
Mhm.
And so we were basically, we've got to create some humor and fun in this, and we've got to design it so people laugh and share. Even though some of the cards are not humorous, and I can show you them later, but it's a combination of, and that's why we decided to make it.
Mm. It's exactly that, which makes for a good dinner conversation, doesn't it? Because, a good dinner conversation is like a good dinner. It's all kinds of different flavors mixed up in the right balance. And that's what your card game feels like, You've got
Sorry,
dead.
I've got to show you this card now because you've made even I'm laughing. So one of our cards is this. Good dinner conversation.
What's that? Mushroom time. Oh no.
These are what to do whilst you're alive. Is take magic mushrooms, eat some shrooms, and lose your fear of death. It's a true story. You actually can do that with magic mushroom. Sorry.
Yes, you can do that. But for those of you who aren't in Australia, we've just had an extremely, not popular, what's the word? People were just obsessed by this particular case where a woman poisoned and killed her extended husband's extended family, ex-husband's extended family with mushrooms over the dinner table. So, yes, very pertinent that you should have that card in there.
I know I had to. I was like, oh, good, like I'm there I go. So yeah, so the idea was, and it was really interesting. So Taxi commissioned us to make it. Um, and sort of the aging revolution, what Leonie and I do is specialize in the whole idea of co-design and design thinking. So if you're going to make something, you make it with people who have lived experience.
Mm.
So, I'm aware this is mainly a book club thing. And so we pulled on many people's experiences to create the narrative and story of what this game looks like.
Mm.
And that meant having lots of difficult conversations. So we talked to people in palliative care, we talked to people who had lost someone, we talked to people who were caring for someone who was dying. The artist herself, so all the images, so all the artwork's done by an amazing woman in Brisbane called Mickey
Mm.
Brogan. And her mum had stage 4 terminal cancer while she was doing this. And so she was living it. And her mum was quite influential in this because she was kind of the litmus test where she found it hilarious to talk about what she wanted to do when she died. And she came to the launch party. And so the original idea was like, maybe it's something digital because, digital is ubiquitous at the moment. And then after running a whole bunch of co-design workshops, turns out that that's not where conversations happen. Like you said, conversations happen around the dinner table or after dinner or having friends round or listening to music or drinking wine or smoking or whatever it might be. And so it went from a digital product to an analog card game product. And then we were like, okay, so how do we come up with 100, I think it's 184 cards is in the deck. And we just talked to people. And I think one of the interesting things around this as well, it wasn't just old people we talk to. When you think about dying and death, people automatically go to old and aging. Aging revolution is we specialize on that end of the world in sort of the last third of life. But we were in Darwin and we started the aging revolution by doing a road trip around Australia, running storytelling events about what it's like to grow older. We had people in their 30s coming up to us saying, well, aging's a luxury because my husband died 4 weeks ago of cancer and he was 32. And then I went to Hummingbird House, which is a place in Brisbane, which is a palliative care hospital for children.
Right.
And so I ended up talking to children very candidly, and quite often they're much more open talking about dying and death than adults, which is kind of amazing because it was an assumption we completely didn't have, or we thought we've got to hide children from the horrors of dying and death. Turns out you don't have to at all. You can engage them much better than adults a lot of the time.
Yes. Well, I think it's such an important thing to get your head around as a little person, isn't it? Also, because normal, natural is how we all need to feel about death. And that's a good reason to have pets, I think, or go out and watch things that die.
Yeah, we're actually talking to a couple of palliative care organisations at the moment around getting this into curriculums in schools. Not
Great.
our game, but actually the whole idea around
Mm.
you learn about birth and sex, and you learn about drugs and alcohol, and you learn about all biology and all sorts of things. And we should learn about death because it is one of the inevitable parts of our whole existence.
And I'm a strong believer that if you understand how you feel about death and you've gone through that process of really thinking about it, preparing for it, understanding that it's coming up rather than, no, thank you, then you're going to live a whole lot better. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it's a weird thing because we kind of Leonie and I are ensconced in that world of aging and dying and death. It's kind of like people, oh my God, is it morbid thinking about it all the time? And I think it's the absolute opposite. It's quite
Yes.
freeing going like, oh, I hope I don't die tomorrow, but I might. So I'll be to live every minute as best I can. You know, doesn't mean I go full hedonist mode, although I have my moments.
I just think of, the guy up in Mullumbimby who was a TAFE woodwork teacher, and he was a Buddhist as well. And so for a 10-week term, he had all his students make a piece of furniture that would be in their house, which they interact with daily, that was a coffin. And I thought that was a brilliant thing, because then you're there, bang, every day, boom, boom. Death is coming, and this is precious, this life. Really, really precious. Mm.
Yeah, and it kind of puts into perspective, I don't know, especially what's going on around the world at the moment. It's like try and do as much as you can when you can. When you also, and I think it's the other thing. The card game often it can be on the face of it, it can be quite fun, but it can cut a lot deeper to
Sure.
purpose. And so, a friend of mine, a professor at JCU in Townsville, was talking to a colleague who was terrified of death,
Mm.
and he ended up playing the game with her. And then afterwards, all she talked about for the next 2 weeks was how it's like fundamentally shifted, like, oh, what she should do in life, and don't get stuck in a quagmire, and how to view these different things. And they had these like existential conversations for like weeks and weeks afterwards because it opened something up. So kind
Mm.
of that, and that's perfect when I heard that, because that's what the game was designed to do. And it took like 2 years to get to that point.
Well done. And I feel like, the other thing that death does, bringing into focus death, especially when we're talking about it in a group, is death is the best leveler. We're all going to die, so it brings us out of that craziness of I own a Ferrari and you don't kind of
Yeah,
concept.
exactly. Like
Right?
Elon Musk is going to die, and I'm going to die. So
Yeah.
it's weirding me out a bit. We talk about dying and death, and all you can see is my head, and everything else is black. It's kind of funny. That wasn't on purpose.
Sure, it wasn't.
I'm wearing a t-shirt. Look, see, that was on purpose.
And I really like the lights above your head, the little spirit lights
I
too.
know. I'm like, oh God, that's hilarious.
All good, all good. Through the door. Um, so I'd love you to, if you're up for it, to share a few of the cards with us, or show us how it's designed, like how it works.
Okay, I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you the design process we went through, and then I'll show you how it's played some of the cards. So after we realised it had to be a not digital and analog game, we came up with all sorts of ideas around: is it a collaborative game? Like, do we have to play this together to reach success, or or is it competitive?
Mm,
Or and so I like the idea of a collaborative game, but way harder to make.
mm,
And so it's just like, and we're like, also from a cost point of view, it's like, how do we make a game with cards? Cards is like, people are used to cards. How do we have a card game? And so we
mm,
settled on cards. And then we're like, okay, what are the stages of dying and death? And we've done a lot of work in this space, like I've mentioned. So we worked with Pancreatic Cancer Foundation around carers and grief and all sorts of things. And so we were like, well, there's the kind of like the stage where you're living
yeah.
now. There's a stage where there's the action of dying and death, whatever
Mm,
that might be, and then there's the what happens afterwards. And so we broke the game down into those three areas. So we have like cards which is called live cards, and they're green, and that's basically what do you want to do whilst you're still living. And then you
mm,
have cards that are yellow, that's basically die. That's how you die.
mm-hmm,
And then you have bye cards, which is like you're gone, bye bye. Now what happens? And then we went through 7 iterations of the game before we came up with the final one. Because you think you've written a rule that's perfect, and everyone goes like, "I don't understand that rule, Simon." And it's like, "Oh, my brain, why is it so rubbish sometimes?" And then I think there's probably still bits like that.
yeah.
And then also we involve young people and all sorts of people in the design of it and the cards. So the idea is obviously stimulates conversation. That's the whole point. And so the live cards, everyone sits in a circle. So it's 3 to 6 players. He can have 8 players. I've got a friend who takes it traveling with him because he uses it to find out more about people. Because you can dig down into serious stuff really quickly. It's not like shallow. It's like, what's
Mm,
your dreams and passions and fears, and
mm,
straight off the bat.
mm,
Um, and so the the first, so you sit down, and then the person's whose birthday we play it is nearest Day of the Dead. They're the first people to go. And then so in a circle, the all the die cards, and there's that many of them. You pick one randomly. So you can't choose these. These you can either just like shuffle it and someone picks it, or and then so they're broken down into 3 kinds of deaths. And these
okay.
are inspired by children as well. So you have the first kind of death, which is just a card. and that's how you die. And this is done on purpose because you don't. I don't know how I'm going to die. You don't know. And so the idea was you can't pick. Unless you get a special card, then you can. I'll explain that in a minute. But basically, you just get allocated a that's how you die card. So some are funny, like I'm in North Queensland, so there's that one, obviously. If I
Oh,
get the light, there we go. Light.
okay.
So that's I get eaten by a saltwater crocodile, North Queensland styling. Some are morbid and they elicit reactions like oh no, which is like that one, which
What?
is dying alone in a care home.
Oh no.
Exactly, and that normally stimulates the whole conversation. Some are funny, like that one, which is you died because you forgot the safe word. Then, then you have one influenced by children. So sometimes there's question marks. There's quite a few question mark ways
Yeah.
of dying, and then this elicits a response. So this is gold one. This is pick the best way to die, and sometimes you can pick the worst way to die. Pick the grossest. Pick the funniest, weirdest. Again, elicits a conversation. And normally, what happens is if someone has that card, um, it will just go around. Everybody will be like, "What do you think the grossest way to die is?" And then there's like the slashed in half cards, which is it's inspired by my friend's 10-year-old daughter at the time. She's always asking questions. Would you rather get killed by a camel or a killer whale? I was like, it's not a life question. I thought I'd have to answer. So this is one of them. It's like, would you rather be tickled to death or bitten by sexy vampires? And then you got to, choose. Obviously, sexy vampires. It's like no brainer that one. And then you got to sort of like, and then that's how you die. So everybody puts that card down in front of them. That's how you die. No questions asked.
Can you go back a
But if
step?
you,
I need to
yep,
know what is the Day of the Dead? Which
2nd of November.
2nd of November. Okay, thank you.
And so, but again, I think this is the rule book. There's videos online that you can post to about me explaining how to play the game. But the
Hmm.
first rule of the game is these rules are more what you'd call guidelines. Feel free to use them or make your own up.
Okay.
So this game was designed to be competitive. But if there's 4 people and 4 bottles of wine, by the end of the game, no one really cares who's winning, unless you get one of those friends who's like ultra competitive. But the game is just supposed to elicit conversations and a bit of fun. So then, after you're dead, you've died, and then everybody gets 5 live cards.
Mhm.
And then the idea is a bit like Cards Against Humanity or always kind of other games. You've got to put down what card you think people are going to choose
Mm.
before they're dead. What they're going to want to do. Now, tactically, there's some cards in there that I don't think will ever be played. If they are, it's a very special group of people. But the idea was to educate people about dying and death. So things like, do you have an advanced care plan? Now, super boring card, but most people don't have one. And then it's lots of people end up going, what's an advanced care plan? And so you can go, well, if you get hit by a bus and you're on life support, what do you want to happen? And they're like, oh, I haven't thought about that. It's like, well, someone needs to know.
Mm.
And there's like, do you have a will? And so these might not be like the most fun cards in the world, but um, if you look at them, it raises the awareness of that person. And then I've watched people go like advanced care plan, and then so more likely to go and do something about it.
Mm.
But then other cards are quite serious. So you have like this card is keep me alive on life support, and then conversely, because you'd have voluntary assisted dying, and so you could pick that one, and then you start having these interesting conversations about that.
Mm.
On the bottom of quite a lot of the cards, there'll be notes like that. But
Yeah.
this one says, "Keep me alive. Don't turn off the resuscitator. Do everything possible to keep me alive." And then it says here, "Do you have an advanced care plan in case you cannot speak for yourself?" And then if you can't, who speaks for you? Then there's Then there's ones like this, which is like take mushrooms, have a trip. Then this is my favorite. That's actually me, Kate. It's one of my ambitions ever is to hug a shark
Yes.
before I die. So I want to do that. Or do you want to celebrate? Do you want to have like a big meal with a whole bunch of families, or do you want a living wake? So there's 84 different cards around what you want to do for you live, and you go around. Everybody, once you play one round, someone chooses. You replace the card, so everyone has 5 cards, and you just go around the whole table till everybody's chosen a card.
Hmm.
And then so then you have what you want to do whilst you're living, and then you're dead. And then everybody collects those cards, and you do exactly the same thing. Everybody gets 5 buy cards, and you go around the table again. It's like, all right, you've lived your life, you've done this, you've had your big massive party, or you've gone traveling around the world, or you've hugged a shark. Unfortunately, you got bitten by sexy vampires, but they weren't the kind where you come back and you're dead. Now what? And so then you play exactly the same thing. And so these, I always think these are a bit more interesting because you have things like you have transcendence, which is like, upload me into the internet and I'll live forever. And then that normally gets a whole bunch of questions about immortality and digital and souls and all sorts of things. Or do you just want to have a simple one like, I want everyone to dance at my funeral? Or real one in some cultures you have strippers at the funeral. So a lot of these and a lot of some of these cards, and this is the other thing about the game is we specifically made all the character skeletons because they're not gender, they're not race, they're just skeletons. So
Mhm.
that was purposeful.
Mm.
And also, there's no mention of a religion, but there
Mm.
is mention of it. So it'll
Mm.
be like you have found faith, or you have found God, or you have gone back to your country, or so there's touches of culture and religion without it being specifically Christian, Muslim, First Nations culture. But and again, that stimulates those conversations.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is this one because it makes everyone go ew. I don't know if you ever remember the film Fight Club.
Yes.
So this is basically your body fat is siphoned off when you're dead and turned into memorial soaps to give to your family. Who would you give the soaps to?
That's disgusting.
I know, and it's awesome. And then you have different kind of burials. So obviously you have sky burials, or do you want to become a tree or a memorial reef? So in
Mm.
terms of like soul advisor and all the kind of things that all the practitioners do in this sort of neck of
We
the
have.
woods, a lot of these are really because do you want to have a do you want your money to buy a nature reserve to do conservation, or do you want to be buried in a mushroom soup, or do you want to be recycled like Soylent Green styly? So you go through all these different conversations again about celebration or legacy or what do you want to happen, and then some of them are mad and some of them are sensible, and one's reincarnation, and if you play with kids, um, a lot of them would be like, I'm going to be reincarnated as a shark. And it'd be like, what do you want to be reincarnated as? So it'll just go around the table again and have a conversation. And then at the end of the game, you have a live card, you have a die card, and then you have a buy card. And that's kind of like how you lived. And then there's two of these cards, which is a eulogy. And if you have one of them, you can say to two people who are playing with you, I'm dead. This is the life I've lived. You know me. You have a minute to do my eulogy. So pretend you're at my funeral when you're doing my eulogy. This can be quite an emotive card. It can be triggering. It can be uncomfortable. Some people don't want to do it because it's really weird talking about someone who sat next to you in the past tense.
Mm. Mm.
But depending who you're with, if I'm doing it, Kate, it'd be stupid and hilarious, but other people take it very seriously.
Mm.
But again, it helps that kind of narrative. And
Yeah.
and then the person who gets the most cards picked wins if you're still scoring. But and so that's the whole game.
Well, it's a fabulous invention. It's much like the inside of your brain, Simon, if I might say so.
Yeah, well, it
Yeah.
came from there, so this makes sense.
You've got a fabulously eclectic brain that mix matches and moves quickly and jumps here and jumps there. And that's what makes this game so great. Like it's really, really entertaining to be part of. And it's personal enough so that people don't feel put on the spot, really. They're just like in the process of it. It gets over any nerves or stages that they might be in. And Simon, you and I, especially you, are going to bring this to 100 people at one sitting. Can you imagine how complex and interesting that will be?
Yeah, so there's two things you want to do with it. Um, Ideally, I'd like to just get loads of. So we sell it online, and we have people like death doulas have bought. It's mainly death doulas who buy it actually, and palliative care workers.
Mm, fabulous.
Um, you know, Ideally, I'd like more mainstream people to buy it. I'd love people to play this at Christmas, but might cause a few arguments. I don't know. We played it once before where someone said, "Well, obviously you left me the house," and they're like, "No, not obviously at all." And so I was like, "I'm just going to leave now." Um, and so I do want to kind of get it into the more mainstream market, and then also and bits and bobs. But yeah, playing with 100 people is going to be really interesting because I want to kind of.
Mm.
I played it, so I did a talk at Probus, in where I live up here. And it was really interesting because I was a bit worried because I think it's the oldest audience I've ever had. And obviously, someone heckled me because they're no fear. And they're like, most of us here are either dying or have known someone who has died. I went, I know, but I hope you will find this funny. by the end of the evening, there was a whole group of people finding out stuff. They've been friends for 35 years, and
Yes.
they were finding stuff out about each other by
Wow.
playing this game, and they were
Wow.
laughing their heads off. And I thought, this is brilliant. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, and so working with 100 people, it's going to be interesting. So how the movement and stories, because the other thing it's really good at is eliciting storytelling.
Yes.
Because I say I want to swim with sharks, someone goes, "Oh, remember when I used to be a spearfisherman? I did this," and so.
Mm.
And then one of the things we try and encourage, and I don't think it's probably in the game enough, is there should be like a chief game director, like a narrator or someone who knows the game to hold the space.
Yeah.
Because if someone knows the game and they hold the space, it does allow for really interesting conversations. Because someone might just fly off and go like, "Oh, I remember this day when I was in
Yeah.
PNG working with a group of women and we did this thing and they were talking about this," and they just start creating and it tells a story and you can start like getting people's stories. It's quite fun.
Yeah, and I think, what you're pointing out is the context in which we're going to be teaching this to 100 people is to establish a blue zone in the area that I live in. So um, a blue zone being people living to over 100. But first of all, before we do that, we need to bring everybody into relationship with their own death and the death of others in the community. So it's going to be a brilliant game. And it's a really strong community anyway. It's very small and people know each other, but they don't know each other like this. So really looking forward to the liberation and
And I
the
think,
building. Mm,
yeah, I think one of the really interesting things about this is like most people don't know themselves like this.
yes.
And because it's like I know Leonie's done a lot of work around psychosocial safety and difficult conversations. And actually, when you get down to like self-reflection
Yes.
around all sorts of things, like there's a massive lack of it. And
Yeah.
whether that be because of the the pressures we put ourselves under because of the systems we operate in, or cost of living, and you go like work, kids, sleep, work, kids, sleep, work, kids,
Mm,
stress, 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 stress. The time for self-reflection is very small.
yeah.
And so you got it's what you do for a job.
Mm,
That's what Shavasana is about, all sorts of things. But
mm,
and so this actually does do a lot of self-reflection. So it can cause discomfort, which is one of the whole points. You like causing
mm,
discomfort.
mm.
Um, and so yeah, it's going to be really interesting around working with you on doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the discomfort, you've got to break down to break through, as they say. And
Yeah,
I
right.
think, and a community is made up of a whole lot of community members. So it's a very personal topic, but to hold it in a space of levity, and happiness, and support. Like, I think one of the very important things is that you have a counselor in mind when you start this game in a community situation, because it does bring up stuff. Death is death, of course it brings up. It's the
So
biggest fear.
when I played it at Probus, I say so. The other bit, the other business we do is virtual reality, and we have made virtual reality training for palliative care workers around how you give and take and receive this news.
Mm,
Um, and one of the things I did with Probus was like, you're going to play a game, or I'm actually before I even did the talk, I said I'm going to be doing a talk about this. If
yeah,
at any point you feel like you just want to leave, feel free. Like,
yeah,
permission granted. If you feel uncomfortable,
yes.
because I don't know anyone in this room. Your husband might have died yesterday. I don't know. So if you
Mm,
want to go, go. No one's going to feel bad about it. And also, um, permission to cry and all sorts of stuff is perfectly fine.
yeah. Which is we do need to keep saying, especially within our culture, we really need to give people permission to let go and cry. Yeah, it's a big part of being together, isn't it, really? To in real community, not in.
Yeah, and I think, and also the other thing, the other really interesting about the community is like getting all generations involved. Because I'd love, because one of the things I've been talking to palliative queen is like, how do you make a kid a version for teachers to
Mm,
play with children that parents won't freak out about?
yeah,
Obviously you can't have you forgot the safe word.
yeah,
There's some other cards that might be a bit too close to the mark. But if you can make it fun, and design it with young kids with young kids for them,
yep,
it's a very good way to actually start talking about this kind of stuff because it's funny a lot
absolutely.
of the time. It's like, ew, you fell into a toilet full of poo and drowned. That's really funny. It's like horrendous, but funny.
And kids do what kids will do. It's definitely a game in translation could offend, or it needs to be rethought through with different cultural groups too, because I think it's a great
So
concept. But yeah.
yeah, we have talked. I was talking to a young woman who lives up in Yarrabah, up near
Mm,
Cairns, and she really liked it,
mm,
and she wanted to basically same gameplay, same everything, but make it culturally appropriate for her,
okay.
her sort of crew up there. And we never got around to doing it, unfortunately. And also change all the artwork and make get all the artwork to be done by her and her friends.
Yeah.
And I thought that'd be a very interesting project to sort of, and also if you did want to make it specifically for a different culture, like whether it, I guess the other thing that we were talking about was using it as an education tool. So around what does death look like if you're part of a Mandarin or Cantonese culture or Islamic
Yeah.
faith or from somewhere
Buddhist.
else in Europe, Buddhist, whatever. So how does what is your what are the things that are faux pas or not faux pas? Because there's also and rituals. What rituals do people want and how do they want them? And I think especially in a country where you still have first generation migrants from all these different countries, and then the kids might have grown up here and be like, I don't believe that. You believe that? You don't? I don't believe that. And it's like, okay, how does that conversation happen
Yeah.
between like your mum wants this, but you don't want it because you don't believe in it, but your mum wants it.
Mm,
So that's
mm.
yeah, it's another whole interesting area we'd love to explore, but
I've been
as yet have not.
we've been doing a little bit of work currently with ancestral medicine, which is an international group that looks at ancestral lineage, etc. And again, I would love there to be a game around what your lineage looks like, to start people feeling comfortable to place themselves in that four-directional lineage,
I
your
think
mother's mother and father, your father's mother and father, and to start to think along those lines, because healthy First Nations integrated cultures think about that. Yeah.
no, I think so we've talked about Kate, so a bit off topic now, but just the actual use of games to
Mm,
have interesting discussions and learning is a very powerful tool. I remember there was I can't remember who told me now, but it's about like the idea of gamifying stuff. Is
mm,
like the good thing about games is there's no really real world consequence,
yeah.
and you can try again. So you can I can play this, I can do this game, and every time I play this game, I'm dying different, I'm living different, and I'm doing something else. Yeah,
Mm,
people, there's a theme, because I made it, so there's lots of things about water and ocean and stuff. I'm sure
yeah.
someone else would have something different. But
Mm,
and I know we've been talking about games, about how you use it to understand different cultures, or how you use it to bring people together
mm,
through
mm,
fun and knowledge.
mm.
Because it's a much better way than, or for me, and I for lots of people, learning by just reading it on a piece of paper is just like it's not going to work.
Yes.
So use games because they can look pretty and they're engaging and they can be fun
And,
too.
I'm absolutely with you, which is why I haven't personally written a book about yoga, because I say to everybody's like, you should write a book about yoga after all these years. It's like, no, I believe in living knowledge, and that looks like conversational knowledge that keeps growing and building within me and
If it's
express.
any consolation, Kate, if you ever did write a book about yoga, I will never read it.
Thanks. I agree. Much rather teach you in class and make you stand
Yeah,
in
thanks.
for 20 minutes after that comment.
Okay, I'll give it a go next time I see you.
Yeah. Martine, have you any questions that you would like, or comments?
Yeah, no question. It's just like it's such an amazing idea to do this game. It really will bring interesting conversation and insight into people and reminders of maybe they never thought about, things that the game will bring up. So yeah, I think it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And you can do like slightly different cards for like a really young children or teenagers or something like that, and do like, special flavor for this group or this group, or
Mm,
like cards which have questions and then challenge people. Like there could be a lot of amazing ways to play cards like that.
mm.
So congratulations, that's amazing.
Thank you.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. I love the idea. It's beautiful.
Me too. I think it's a great idea. And
Yeah.
we could go on about statistics in Australia, but they're
Mhm.
different all the way around the world about how people, what is it? 63% of people would prefer to die at home and 10% do, you know, and so much of that discrepancy comes from people not having thought it through. Like there's a lot of things you need to think through if you're going to die at home.
There is, and I think, I'm not going to name names, but we know certain people who they're in their 80s and they want to die at home. They put nothing in place to do so, and
Yeah.
it's all up to other people to do that.
Do you know what? We've got somebody joining us now from far, far away. Hello, Anna Maria. How are you?
Hello and welcome. I welcome you all. Love and light to you all, and I'm very pleased you have given me the space to be here today.
I'm very pleased to have you. So would you like to perhaps just we'll tell you where we're at because we're just about to finish in 5 minutes. So we've been doing 40 minutes. But
I'm very sorry.
no trouble. You're here, and would you like to tell a little bit about yourself? Because you're which country?
I am from Romania. I'm a therapist, a licensed therapist in holistic therapies, complementary therapies, and I have many schools in my background. But first of all, I'm just like you, soul energy, and I want to give and spread the light and informations I have been learning for so many years. And hopefully I can be part of your community and share all my informations and help other people, of course, with my background.
Beautiful. Well, I think, Anna Maria, that's exactly who we are.
Yes,
so we're looking
just
at
being natural.
Natural. And the world needs healing. And we've just been talking for the last 40 minutes. Simon's been presenting a game that he plays, which is all about, or has developed, called Carked It, which is all about making good choices around death. You know, how we die, how we live to die, and how we die, what happens afterwards. And it's a very funny game. But, you know,
sure.
Yeah. So I think for all of us, and Martine is also an author, and Martine has written a book called Hacking the Wellbeing Code, how to make martial art. What's the tagline, Martine?
Like well-being as a life of a martial artist, like living like a martial artist.
So it's really beautiful for us to have, here we have somebody who's English, French, and from Romania, an Australian, all together, doing our best to bring out a whole lot of different perspectives into the world so that we can learn from each other and strengthen the vessel of all of us here, and try to bring about the wellest world that we can imagine. Yeah. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very exciting to have you here. We do have to finish in 3 minutes, but it's still exciting to have you here. And I love your ring. Can you show that ring?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, it's so
an inheritance from my mom, who passed away 6 years ago. So I have been grieving after my parents. So I decided to heal myself and not to let others to heal me. So I took the trauma course classes in Spain, which helped me so much. And I don't know, it was an amazing period for me. Although I was grieving, but after all, I said I'm a winner. So if I am a winner, I have to help others, because my grandmother was also a therapist. So she was a herbalist, in fact.
A Romanian herbalist. Wow.
And my mother was a Reiki user also. So the background.
And here you are, shining the light. Simon, have you been to Romania ever?
I have not been to Romania. I've been to Poland, furthest east I went in Europe.
Poland, okay. Martine, have you been to Romania?
Not Romania, no.
No.
other places, but not Romania. Yeah, I'd love to go.
I haven't
Maybe
been.
I'm going to make retreats here because I have a little house in the mountains.
Mm.
So it's my property. So I was thinking to develop retreats
Mm.
for my community. You are welcome also. But that's a project for the future. I'm just at the beginning. Just imagine
Yeah.
how it will be.
Uh, well, welcome, and I'm so pleased to have you in our community. And I hope that you'll come to many more things that we're going to be doing, because
Yeah, for sure.
it's the most important part. And I say that with my hand on my heart. The community, if we all feel supported by each other and on the same page, we're bringing about the same vision, then this is going to happen. And there's so much to tell you all at the end of when I leave here in Cambodia about how we're going to do that. It's quite incredible. So Simon, it's very exciting. And Simon, I'm seeing you bringing your game over here to Cambodia and playing it with an international audience. So come on down.
That'd be amazing. All right. Thank you for your time, Kate. Lovely to meet you quickly, Anna
Yeah.
Marie.
And thank you,
And
everybody.
thanks, Martine.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you also for all the support.